Cleanly lie riding, but I know that they ain't. Ride or die. I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride or die.
To know more about them before you start, saying, "Oh, well, it automatically means you believe this, this, and this." Not necessarily.
No. Well, no, I'm not saying the leap that you believe what he believes. I would honestly hope that majority of people wouldn't say that it's okay for a woman to like kill the baby as it's coming out of the womb as long as it's still attached to the umbilical cord. I would hope that like majority of people would just see how messed up that statement is, theist, atheist, whoever, and not condone it.
So it's interesting. I've heard much more, um, much more. I have heard very dishonest, very bad faith actors when it comes to the pro-life versus pro-choice discussion suggest that people who are pro-choice will advocate basically delivering a baby and then hacking it up with an axe. Randolph's not here to defend himself, so I don't want to necessarily talk about him. But I
I
would
will say
find I would find it super weird if Randolph actually thought that was a thing.
so.
He actually said that.
Yeah, I was going to ask Jake because Jake was there and some others were there. He said it, confirmed it, doubled down on it, signed it, stamped it, said, "What's the big deal?"
Well, yeah, I would say to his face that that's vile and disgusting and totally immoral in pretty much every way, shape, and form. And I would stand beside you or any other person who disagrees with that to fight against something like that. Like when once we have a delivered um, baby, that would be murder, not an
His,
abortion.
his argument is because it's still connected to the mom via the umbilical cord, which means that she has sovereignty over the child and she can do whatever she wants. But he's not just in favor of that, he's in favor of any and all form of late abortions for any and all reasons. And like, so I ask people this question, and it's kind of a trick question, but it just kind of gets your head thinking because people are not necessarily in favor of abortions for all reasons. Like, so I ask Joe, are you in favor of abortions? Yes. For any reason that the mom deems fit? They say yes. And then I say, well, what if you find out that the child is going to be born gay and the mom wants to get rid of the child? Well, then they have this moral conundrum because the mom's doing something awful. And so then you get them to actually realize that they're not okay with every reason that somebody would want to abort. And it's not just about choice, but it's about what the decision is and what the choice is combined. And you can move people, you can move their needle on that.
While that's an interesting little bit of head scratching you can do over something like that, you that's that's a pretty fringe kind of question because I'm not sure how you could ever know what the person's orientation or anything might be before
And
before they're delivered. So,
when somebody says that, you simply let them know that in other countries today, girls are being aborted because they prefer boys, and people are currently being aborted now because they can test for Down syndrome. And so, if a parent doesn't want to struggle dealing with a child with a disability, now she can end that. That's an option for her. So, as the
oh well,
medical
yeah, well,
technology increases and you start to know what your child is predisposed to, once you give the option that it's just solely a choice based on whatever preference the individual has, then you have to grant that you would allow them to do it for what seems like a moral principles, but then it wouldn't be necessarily a moral option. So this is just a conundrum that I think that becomes pro-choice.
predisposed might be a little bit of a slippery slope to say, well, oh, they can do this now. So I mean, like through the test you're referring to is amniocentesis, where they test the amniotic fluid to screen for things like Down syndrome, also a lot of other developmental issues, genetic issues, things like this. Um, it might be what it's nothing more than speculation to suggest we may or may not be able to quote unquote screen for something like that in utero. Um, 200 years ago, they might have thought it was impossible to determine the sex of a child before birth. 100 years ago, the things that they can now do with amniocentesis were probably thought to be impossible. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I only play one on TV.
Now,
But anyway,
That's spot on,
the
Michael.
thing though,
They're learning a
the
lot.
thing though is that, hang on. The thing though is that they're able to genetically test babies now. This is able to be done. They're able to genetically test adults in the sense that they can find out what medications will react with you in such way just by running certain genetic tests. I know because my daughter had it done like 5 years ago. Now, I don't think that it's irrational to think that in a society where people believe that people are born certain ways and that you would not want to eventually, if you found certain information that would lean one way or the other. Like, here's one way they said that if a woman has given birth to several children, it's more statistically likely that the fourth child, fifth child would be gay versus the other three male children. And the reason being is they said something to do with the pregnancy and something to do with the hormones. So,
so James, sorry, just before you go off like a little too hard, because like you're saying a lot, and it's fine. It's your stage. I'll shut up if that's what you want me to do. But it seems like you're stringing a lot of things together. So it was just what I was going to ask you was like saying, they say. Have you got like some citations or something you can pin or something that we can look at? Just because say, oh, they're saying now, who are they? And where are you getting this? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm certainly not saying you're being dishonest. I'm just genuinely curious where you're getting this information from.
let me see if I can find a website that's like a one-stop shop because I know you have to look around for a few of the different articles.
As long as it's not the
But
Institute for Creation Research, I'll look at pretty much anything.
I can understand. So
That is admittedly a somewhat interesting. It's almost like a variation on like kind of like a trolley problem. Like you're saying, if you knew this, would you do that? I don't know. They're interesting. Some of them are pretty interesting head scratchers.
I'm
I mean, I don't think it's
at
I don't
any,
think it's unreasonable. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm still scratching my head at any doctor wanting to end the life of a baby after birth, even though the umbilical cord is still attached.
Yeah, nobody does that.
I don't think.
well,
Yeah,
you guys have to remember what I said is this was one particular atheist's opinion, and I stressed that I didn't think that the majority of people would ever, agree with him on this.
yeah. I mean, that would be the kind of thing. And again, given that Randall's not here to defend himself, but I'll tell you, and are replays on? Yes, replays are on. So I'll say this now for something that's going to be recorded and for anything that can be ever replayed for him. If I ever heard Randolph Richardson say something like that, I would chew him out on the spot for condoning something
Like that. Yeah.
that
Yeah. I
because
don't hear
like
him saying
yeah
something like that. I really don't, because I've talked to him a few times, and I don't think.
yeah yeah. I mean
Look,
because
here's the thing.
that's not an abortion at that point. That's murder.
Look. Here's the
Like
thing.
that's murder.
You don't have to believe me, but I also had a witness on stage who was there when he said it, which was Jake. So there's at least two of us. And what I'm saying is, when you see him, ask him if you can end a pregnancy while the baby is still attached to the umbilical cord after delivery.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever be able to forget this part of the conversation. So yeah, if the next time I talk to him, I will definitely ask that question.
I want clarification, St. James. You said end of pregnancy after the baby is delivered while still attached to the umbilical cord. Do you realize that once the baby is delivered, that pregnancy is terminated?
I would agree with you, James, that it's done and that the baby can't be and should not be harmed under any circumstances. But
Right.
he said because up until the cord is cut, the child is dependent on the mom, and it's her body, her choice. And he uses like analogies like parasites. He believes that he can actually say a developing human being in early stages of development is equivalent to a parasite. I don't know whatever parasites he's ever looked at, but typically it's a foreign body, not a natural process, something that is, in our reproductive cycle. Like typically it's something that latches onto you like a tick.
A few moments later.
Hypothetically speaking, if we outlawed all other abortions with the exception of those, would you be okay with that, Michael?
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah.
That's what James is
No,
saying.
absolutely not.
So,
No.
Michael, do you believe that a woman should have the right to have an abortion for any reason she wants?
That depends on the term that the abortion's at.
Within the
So
first 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks.
yes, without
Okay,
She
caveat.
doesn't know she's pregnant the first 3 to 4 weeks.
So then logic follows. We're just carrying on with what Michael said. So then logic follows. You would be okay if she'd aborted the child because she had fear that the child would be gay. You'd be okay if she aborted the child because she had fear that it would be a boy instead of a girl. You'd be okay if she aborted the child because the child was going to be born with a disability. All those things you would have to be, or you would also have to be okay with just a woman using that as birth control because she didn't want medical effects of a pill.
No, no, and no. That's a gigantic straw
Yeah,
man.
that's not true,
No.
James.
No, Michael, you just said any reason. If you didn't mean any reason, then don't say any reason, Michael.
So to go to what Haiti said, like within the first 4 weeks, unless she's got one hell of a laser accurate pregnancy test, she may not even know she's pregnant. A lot of women don't even know they're pregnant until they've missed one cycle. So
You're
they
4
sometimes are
weeks of
6, 8
pregnant.
weeks.
You're 4 weeks of pregnant 2 weeks after you miss your first period. So you can't even test before then.
Yeah.
So, like, first of all, I don't think people even know what 4 weeks pregnant means. It doesn't mean 4 weeks after, like, you would know.
So Haiti, I was being charitable instead of taking it to the second trimester. Although most pregnancies are generally aborted within, I think, 4 to 6 weeks. Is when most are aborted. But that's a separate topic. But what Randolph, or not Randolph,
You have a source on that?
What Michael said is that for any reason. Then I gave him reasons that he didn't like, and said I was strawmanning him.
James.
So that's the contradiction of any.
Unfortunately, James, no. I know. I'm going to stop you on that one. And if we get to the point where you don't like it anymore, you're going to have to remove me. I'm not going to let you straw man me in that way.
Michael, what does
for example, hang on. You made a point and you've pasted that on me, and that's not going to happen. So
you said any though.
No, hang on. Let me finish my point. Within the first 4 weeks, reference to what Haiti said, you don't even know. They can't. When you're talking about things like, oh, test if they're gay, test if they're a boy, you're talking about things that they don't. First of all, we don't even have the capacity to test for things like gender preferences or sexual orientation or anything like that. And the other things that we were talking about that they test through things like amniocentesis, you don't do that until much further into the pregnancy. So we can have that discussion in 100 years when medicine has advanced to the point where 25 minutes after the woman gets pregnant, they can run that test and bring up a screening and say, yes, your fetus is going to be blah, 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 blah. Do you want to have it? Having that conversation right now is unrealistic.
Michael,
and it's not genuine on your part.
Michael, stop for a second. Look, you said any
He's
reason.
dodging, James.
I don't know any other way that any reason means anything other than any reason. Then I give you some reasons that have a moral stumbling block that you don't like, and you accuse me of straw manning you. Well, Michael, excuse me, don't use the term any if you don't mean any.
Right. So like I said.
So are you going to retract
Michael,
that? You don't mean any reason anymore, right?
Michael,
sorry, I can only understand one person talking to me at a time.
Yeah, well, let me help you out, Michael. You don't need to do this dodge, right? All you need to say is this. The question is it a right or not? If it is a right, you do not have to give a reason to exercise that right. That should have been your answer.
The better question is, does a woman have a right at the 8th month, Michael?
At the 8th month, I would say probably not,
she
because
does
that
not
fetus
have a
would
right
be.
to her own body at 8
Hang on,
months?
John. Let me finish my sentence. Because at that point, at 8 months, that fetus is viable outside the womb, and then I think that has to be a much more nuanced discussion. But Haiti, you made a really good point, and yes, in Canada, access to that kind of healthcare is a right. So yeah, it should be without caveat, and I should have clarified that point from the beginning. So yes.
Yeah, but women don't just have abortions for no reason, Michael.
You're right.
Women have abortions for reasons. I asked you for any reason. You said yes. Then I gave you some reasons that would be morally repugnant. And instead of being logical and consistent with your view and saying yes, she'd be allowed, you stomped your feet and accused me of straw manning you. But when you say any reason, I take that as you meaning any reason.
Right.
And then when you say that it's a woman's right to choose over her body, and John gives you a scenario where something is happening with her body, now you're restricting it based on the month. You're saying,
right,
hey, at 8 months or 7 months, you no longer have the right to your body.
So
you
at which month?
Do this other procedure, Michael.
Yeah. So at which month is a woman required to be a
All right.
handmaid?
How many people are going to
Michael?
talk to me at one time?
Which months? Is a woman required to be a
so
handmaid?
John, I'm going
no
to ignore.
have
I'm
a
going to
right
ignore
to her
you
own
for a
body
second.
at what?
John,
5 months? Does it begin at
John,
5 months to 9 months?
James,
John,
can you just?
I'm going to ignore you for a second.
What is it?
James.
John, I'm going to ignore you for a second. I'm going to respond to what James said.
That's fine.
Okay.
So
you can avoid the question. I mean, I don't mean to bombard you with questions, but
yeah. So I'm going to respond to what James said. So James, what you said is right. What Haiti said is right. So I have to retract my statement, and I have to say that yes, if it's going to be a right, it has to be it has to be a right. I misspoke. Yeah, that's what it has to be.
So does a woman have a right to her own
Holy
body?
shit! How many people are going to talk to
There
me at
goes
one
John
time?
again.
John, I'll let you go right after this. Right after you
Stop acting like a thug, John.
So I'll let John go right after this. So now you are okay saying that you would be fine with a woman aborting if she thinks the child's going to be gay, if she thinks the child's going to be male or female, or if she thinks the child may be born with a disability like Down syndrome. You are now fine with that.
So it's really interesting. So I think what
Just
you're
say
trying
yes,
to.
Michael.
So I
Just
think
say yes.
I am going to say yes, but I'm going to add a caveat to it. So like Haiti, while I appreciate it, I would like to answer how I'd like to answer.
Yeah, don't be a thug yet.
Oh, I thought you said
I
you should
think
bring up women to give their voices, but I guess I'll be quiet.
yeah. Well, it was addressed to me. If he wants to address you, do you want to address your question, James? Do you want to address your question to Haiti instead?
No, all right. I'll
shut
stop
up.
trying to help, Michael. I'm sorry. I'll let you go ahead.
No, Haiti was just showing you, Michael, that right now you are in a state of being irrational and not consistent with your views.
Right. Any reason is not any reason, James.
Yes. But now John's going to ask you the question.
I'm still going to respond to you, James.
Yeah,
I'm still going to respond.
Go
I'm
ahead
still
and
going to respond to you. And that is yes. In order for me to be consistent, I have to say yes. But I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. But we can have that part of the conversation afterwards if you still want to.
Yep. Now I'm going to let John go. But
so yes, my answer is yes.
Yep.
Okay. So
ahead,
according to the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a person has a right once they are born. Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. So you were talking about rights, bodily autonomy. I'm presuming, and so is there any point at which a woman does not have rights to her own bodily autonomy?
Isn't that right? Doesn't have rights to her own bodily autonomy. I think in reference to the question we're talking about right now, which is abortion, the only caveat that I would put on that is when we're talking about when we're talking about a fetus at the stage of development where it could survive outside the womb.
Okay, so does a woman have a right to her own bodily autonomy at 6 months if she desires to terminate the pregnancy by abortion?
Is the fetus viable outside the womb? I don't know. And that's a genuine question. I don't know.
Does it matter?
I think it does.
So then there are circumstances by which she does not have a right to her own bodily autonomy. Is this correct?
My personal opinion is that if you're talking about aborting a fetus that has the capacity to survive outside the womb, then I think that's a much bigger moral. I think that's a much bigger
So
moral.
I'm going
Hang
to
on,
repeat
John. Let me
myself.
finish my sentence. I think that's a much bigger moral dilemma, and it's something that I scratch my head about a lot, and I'm not 100% sure how to answer you, to be perfectly honest.
So then it seems to me that you are hesitant to acknowledge that a woman has bodily autonomy or the right to bodily autonomy over her own person at all times. It seems like you are now creating circumstances by which she must, that she relinquishes that right, and perhaps I'm going to even so paint it as that she must be a handmaid's tale from the months from maybe 6 to 9, 5 to 9, whatever you want to imagine represents some sort of viability of the fetus. Is this correct?
No, I don't think that's correct because I'm not sure whether I think that it should extend to quote unquote any point the way you've stated it. And I'm not sure whether or not I can even make that determination because I can never be in that situation. That's a
And
really
so
sticky
so
moral
now
question for
you
me.
have
I'm
made
not
your
sure.
so now it seems to me that you have personal opinions, and now you want to legislate those personal opinions on a woman's right to her own body based upon what you feel about the viability of a fetus.
So
It
you
seems
think
to me
so
that
is that what
you're
is
now
that what
saying
you got from what
there
I
is
just
a
said?
point at which a woman does not have right to her own bodily autonomy. This is what I'm hearing. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you are. Because did you miss the part where I said I'm not sure, I don't know about that?
But I mean, isn't it clear cut? Is bodily
No,
autonomy
it's
an
not
issue to
clear
you
cut.
at all? Is it an issue to
I'm
you at
thrilled
all?
that you think that this is such an easy black and white thing. I don't think it's nearly so clear cut and black and white as you think it is.
Well, I mean, from my view, it is a black and white, clear cut issue. But
Well,
I
wonderful, but
only
we
speak
don't
for
all see it from
myself.
your point of view, do
I only
we?
speak for myself.
Yeah, we don't all see it from your point of view. And that's why
But
it's really funny when
I'm
I
not
talk to
demanding that you
when I talk
do.
to Christians about morality,
No,
they seem to think it's this black and white thing. And I think morality is dirty and sticky, and you have to look at individual circumstances at times.
let
And
me
I
say it
you
this
say,
way,
well,
Michael.
can you please give me a cookie cutter scenario where can you say in all situations X is the right
Okay.
thing? You
So
think you've got it all solved by just referring it up to your imaginary friend. It's
I
not
do
that
want to
simple.
before, because this is going to get heated and Michael is leveling an insult now and it is getting tense. I do want to give Michael some charitability. If he's not sure how long women's bodily rights apply to her, and he's not sure about this, and he's saying I don't know. I'm fine with somebody saying I don't know. I'd rather them say I don't know than make a statement that they didn't actually think out. So I appreciate Michael for seeing the problem in his position.
Well, it seems to me he doesn't know when bodily autonomy, the right to bodily autonomy,
But
ends.
John, if he says he doesn't know, and he's obviously wanting to revisit this and think more on it, I don't want to like pound the guy into the dirt over it.
No,
The
it's funny, James. No, James,
the
and and
woman's
I and
the
I
woman's body autonomy right never ends. She always has bodily autonomy rights. End of story.
yeah,
That's what that would be consistent, James, if bodily autonomy is a concern. But if it's not a concern, then there's tension.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the one of the last thing they'll say is one, John. Yeah, I shouldn't have snapped at you the way I did, so I
Oh,
apologize for
not
that.
an issue. I
James.
didn't even bat an eye, honestly.
Well, just saying, you know. And I snapped a little bit at Haiti too, and that wasn't the right thing to do either. But but yeah, maybe you should ask some questions of her.
I've had this discussion with Haiti. To be honest, I find that her position is fairly internally consistent. I will say that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that James said about
But
me
I
that's
but I
fair
don't think yours
is
is,
that
to be honest, as well.
is that it, again, sometimes I want like it is difficult. I try to be as charitable as possible, but it is frustrating when the middle of my sentence interrupts the beginning of yours. Um, so I will say that yeah, this is something that I obviously need to give more thought about, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that answer. Like that's an honest way to end the conversation, Michael. Um, and plus, if we talk about abortion, it's going to spawn into like, because somehow these rooms, when they start, they end up being like 4 or 5 day rooms on Clubhouse. So I think we should probably switch to a different topic.
I go hard in the paint, yeah, homie, I'm a saint. Ride or die.